warm welcome to Techspert Masterclass, and this is our 24th webinar in the series. And the agenda for today is as follows. We will start with a welcome note by our founder, and that's followed by masterclass on the topic of opportunities to reduce end-to-end energy losses in industries by Ashok Sethuraman sir, followed by question and answer session, feedback session, and vote of thanks. Techspert was found with a vision to organize the world's technology experts onto a single network to enable sharing of knowledge. And with this vision, we have organized over 64 events so far, and today's is the 24th webinar in the series. And we have various industry thought leaders who have come on this platform to share their knowledge and benefited thousands of Techspert members. While we are all privileged to be part of such a wonderful platform, while thanking Murugesan sir, our founder, I'll also request sir to inaugurate today's session. Murugesan sir.
Good evening, everyone. I feel great to welcome you all in this wonderful evening to Techspert's 24th Masterclass session. Just I am recalling the first webinar we started in the last week of March as soon as the lockdown initiated in India. In a matter of 100 days, we could be able to do 24 webinar sessions, and the next one would be 25th webinar, going to be our Silver Jubilee. About today's one, sometime back, when I was speaking to Mr. Ashok Sethuraman sir on this subject of efficiency optimization, he was mentioning even lot of small initiatives can be done without any major capex expenditure will ultimately lead to efficiency and cost optimization, which is the very much need of the hour in present situation. Hence, I requested him to present to our Techspert group members, and he graciously agreed to present. So that is how we are here with today. I would like to thank Mr. Ashok Sethuraman sir for your agreement, as well as I thank each and everyone for your participation, as well as the support what you are rendering. With this, I request Mr. Shravan to take over and proceed further. One more request is kindly download the Techspert app from your app stores and get benefit out of whatever we have uploaded as what are all the webinars we have done so far is being uploaded in the app. Please get benefit out of it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Shravan, please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks for those kind words. So we now move on to our main event for the session, and that is the keynote presentation by Ashok Sethuraman sir. Before sir starts, I would like to introduce sir as well. Ashok sir is a BE empaneled accredited energy auditor from Coimbatore, and he's also the Vice President of Indian Association of Energy Management Professionals. He had conducted energy audits in India and abroad, and in around 400 plus industries. And he has over 4 decades of experience and field experience in the industry, maintenance projects, commissioning, etc. And also in professional trainings in India and abroad. And he has also worked for a few years in abroad. He has written several energy conservation articles in many national magazines like Electrical India, Cooling India, Textile Journals, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, IAEMP websites, and also shares knowledge on his website as well, called energymeasuretosave.com. So with this, I would like Ashok sir to proceed further and address the audience with a keynote. Thank you, Ashok sir, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Shravan. And first of all, my sincere thanks to our Murugesan sir, the founder, for having taken up this topic, because as I was discussing before, the end-to-end energy loss, it has to be addressed to the industry, especially in the post-COVID times. This is the real this one. And I take the lead from our Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He is our past beloved president, in fact our college senior also, my college senior. He always used to say, give priority towards the transmission distribution losses in India. Almost 70,000 crores can be reduced. Now it was 35% before on 2005. At 2020, we have almost come down to 20%, and we are from 35% we have come down to 20%, and we are further reducing. On the national T&D, and why this cannot be applied to the industry T&D? In case it is T&D and the end-to-end energy losses that is happening, why it is happening, how this can be controlled, how this can be curtailed, and how this can be made correctly. Let us go in depth into it. Thanks for the passionate listening. We'll go ahead as such. Now, post-COVID times, the industry loading pattern is less. Let us look into the just-in-time preparatory measures, what can be done in the industry to tide over the crisis. Because the operating profit margins, that is very critical now for the industry post-COVID times. How this can be done? So, energy conservation by condition monitoring. This condition monitoring route is definitely going to help us now, because the loading which was there before pre-COVID times, before February, now it is not there. So in the post-COVID times, what are the loading levels we have? The flexible loading is there. So how much of energy conservation can be inculcated or introduced into the system by the condition monitoring route, and this is the key to survival now. So the OEMs can educate the industry now. See, we as consultants, we as energy auditors, we are giving a lot of inputs to the industry to reduce their energy cost and optimize their process. Maximum the OEMs, equipment OEMs, utility OEMs, process OEMs, and the production process experts and the production machine OEMs, they can educate the industry timely now. What has to be done when the loading is less and the running cost of the machine is going up? What can be done to reduce further? So I'm just concentrating on two aspects. Energy that is transmitted from end to end in the industry, that is we say E to E. The incoming of the industry, we call it as a gate-to-gate approach in the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, PAT efficiency schemes. Let us say what is paid to the EB as electricity bill amount, what is the received at the secondary of the transformer, how much is the losses happening in the electricity and the other of the process activities also, process side also. So what all the energy that is being transmitted, whenever it is disturbed partly or it is disturbed fully, that is the reason for energy loss. And this is where the hotspot also is a symptom of blockage of energy loss or the energy flow. And that can happen in any instant of the process. It can happen at the process incoming, or it can happen in the process intermediate stage, or it can happen at the delivery also. So I am always trying to go back to the fundas, let us go back to the basics. See, this is the time, post-COVID times has given us a lot of thought process to evolve ourselves. Let us go back to the basics of energy management, energy conservation, energy auditing, and let us see what all the things can be done. So the law of energy conservation says only one aspect. Whatever the energy that is inputted to the machine or to the process, that is already inputted. So if the process output is the maximum, then the losses are less. If the losses are becoming more in between, then automatically the output value reduces. So why the losses are becoming more and how this can be curtailed? This is the way, this is the shortcut to energy savings, both on the electrical side and the thermal side. So first is to just trim or optimize the input. See, I am getting a transformer in my industry, which is receiving some 380 volt to 470 volt in the night, say around 450 volt in the nights and the 415 volt in the daytime, and 380 also sometimes in the peak of the daytime. Yeah, the electricity at the transformer definitely will pin down the voltage at 415 volt plus or minus 5 volts. So automatically trimming the process input, trimming the energy input to the process is one aspect. This is a shortcut, and it doesn't consume much of money. It doesn't consume much of your this one. Only you need to optimize the energy input to the process. The second one is removing the obstacles in the energy flow and streamline the energy flow. Let us say the case of a compressed air means the streamlined flow of compressed air around 7 bar, it's around 10 meter per second, 8 to 10 meter per second. So whenever the turbulence is peeping in, whenever the streamlined process is getting disturbed, this is where we have to see why the turbulence happened and how this can be corrected. By correcting this, automatically the energy conservation will come and the energy savings will come. So let us look into the locations where the process flow is not totally obstructed. It is slightly obstructed. So let us say the traffic is there from end to end, from a city to city. It is a 40 feet road. The road or the culvert where the 40 feet road becomes a 20 feet, there the traffic accumulates, the traffic jam happens. So the point where the venturi part of the process, this is the area to concentrate and how this can be accommodated to have the smooth flow of process. So energy that is partially flowing or a spark plug or a choke in the process, this can be arranged. When this is addressed to, these are the low hanging fruits in the energy conservation procedures to be done in the process. So these low hanging fruits, where and all it is available, and these are the gray areas because it is not quantified. So the user has, I don't find fault with the user. The user has conveniently ignored because this is not quantified. So he did not have the time to look into it because he has his production or the priority is more on the other aspects where it is quantified that he was looking into it. You go to any electrical department in any industry, the management will first ask, is your electrical department maintaining unity power factor? Then the department is excellent. That is not the only criteria. The electrical department for a given organization has to maintain the electricity consumption or the energy consumption, energy conservation, then the energy management, and through all this, the quality of the process output is improved and the process optimization also very much achievable by this energy management concepts through the energy conservation, that is the bottom of the pyramid. So these are all the areas on the electrical means you can say after the motor, whatever we are receiving from the transformer at 415 volt plus or minus 5 volt, when it reaches the motor, it is plus or minus 10 volt or 20 volt or 30 volt. The more and more the unbalance in voltage, the motors get derated by almost a 5% unbalance on a given three-phase motor. It gets to goes for unbalance almost from 25%. So the corruption of contacts, especially on the dry or loose or undersized or worn out contacts, these are all the areas on the electrical distribution side. Then on the we are seeing both the electrical side and the thermal side. On the pumping side means what are all the pumping, and see everyone thinks let us have an excellent 5-star rated pump, the problem is solved. It is not the solution of the pump only. It is not the problem of the pump only. It is the total pump as a system, pump and piping. If you look at it, there is an ample scope on the piping side as such. That is why people go for VFD to trim down the losses because of the damper in the piping or the throttle valve in the piping. Then comes the sharp bends. See the sharp bends of the pipe fittings where you have very sharp bends, almost 70% friction losses are more. This is thanks to the PCRA bulletins. They give a lot of inputs to us, energy inputs to the industry as such. Then the piping in the compressor house. Once the compressor house piping is, all the T connections are removed and made all conjoining joints, where the slope by 45 degree slope of joints are given to the piping always, definitely the turbulence on each and every T connection will disappear, and automatically the pulsations in the compressed air loading in, unloading, that kilowatt fluctuations, zigzag fluctuations also will go out, and automatically you can see the savings. In some of the industries we have seen almost up to around 8% of savings is possible because of this piping rearrangements. And water is not removed in the if you take the compressor, everyone talks about the compressor, but they always forget about the compressed air treatment. Everyone, the compressor OEM and the compressed air OEM, both have to take the measurement, the necessary precautions to educate the consumer, the user. What are all the stages? The water has to be removed in stages at the compressor, at the post air cooler, at the receiver, and the refrigeration dryer, and at the dryer receiver. On the one on the wet receiver and on the dry receiver. Then the motors, wherever the motors are running, if it is rated for the given speed, are we running at the rated speed for the given motor and the machine? The speed ratio or the all these aspects, the power transmission from motor to machine, in many of the industries we found it's a visible loss that is happening in the industry that can be corrected. And the dry and wet air receivers in the compressor house, it goes a long way to have a sustained dry, cool air to the process. If you have a single receiver, then automatically the pulsations are more in the process, and a lot of the leaks and joints and water increase in the process lines is getting more because the dry receiver was not. That's why it's called two receivers. One is the wet receiver meant for toning down the pulsations in the compressor. The other receiver, the dry receiver, it is meant for the reduction of pulsations from the process. Whatever is the phantom load or whatever is the instantaneous load of heavy load that can accommodate by this receiver, one at the dry air receiver and the compressor house, and a tail end receiver in the process, or an intermediate receiver, we call this a feed forward receiver. All these aspects are required to have a buffer system in the compressor line, so that we are able to maintain a streamlined flow of 10 meters per second. So let us go into the depth of existing machines and processes, where all which has been seen and it has been not taken into account. It can happen in any of the material handling systems or in the production systems, or it can happen in the utility also. Once it is happening in the production systems, we'll come to know the production definitely goes for a loss dip, and definitely we'll come to know. But if it happens in the utility, we tend to overlook it, and we have to run the utility to match to the production. We run the utility inefficiently. Let us see how this is happening. I'm just taking a simple low cost monitoring. Always the OEMs, see, this webinar is towards proactive thinking and positive thinking of all the OEMs and the industry, user industry, to come onto a common platform to see that the energy consumption for the given process and the machine has to come down. So it is not trying to find either the fault with the OEM or fault with the process. Everyone has to work together. See, a simple low cost is OEM always thinks the machine has to work safely for a guarantee of, say, warranty of 1 year or 2 years. It has to work safely. So for overload provision, everything he has taken care. For all the protections are there in the system. But when the machine is going for underload, say, let us say it's a 10 HP motor, almost, let us say, for a day, almost for 10 hours of the day, it is less than 40%. And for another 14 hours, it's a 24/7 machine, let us say, motor. And for another 14 hours, it is running for 70%. So you have to have any motor in the industry which is running intermittently to have a run-hour meter and the kWh meter. Any motor, Bureau of Energy Efficiency targets only one thing. Any motor, before they were telling almost for a 10 HP motor, but now the things are changing, that the rate tariffs are going up. Even for a 5 HP motor, it is worth it because the metering prices come down. Any 5 HP motor and above, if you have a run-hour meter and a kWh meter, automatically you know how many hours of the motor has run, how many units per day or for the hours it has consumed. So you know the average loading of the motor. This is the one of the area where the energy efficiency of the given motor can be sustained if you are having a light type of loading, say between 60 to 80%. If you are operating the motor at less than 40%, what can be done? If you are operating the motor above 90%, what can be done? So the inefficiency, then see, whenever you go and stand in front of the machine, at that time you will find, oh, sir, my 10 HP motor is 1.5 kilowatt, it is running at 6 kilowatt, it is excellent. But when you are out of the machine, when you have moved out of the machine, at that time the machine may go for idling and it can run at 4 kilowatt hours. So things can happen everywhere. So trying to have there are two ways of thinking at it, because thanks to the IoT has come in a big way now. It has come on an affordable low cost also to the industry. MSME has started taking up this IoT to have the minimum low cost automation for all their machines. Say if this average time and this average kWh is known, then we know whether the motor is running always at less than 40%, whether the motor needs to be replaced, or the motor, what can be done on lower underloaded motors, what can be done on normally loaded motors, what can be done on overloaded motors. So energy savings in the underloaded motors. Let us say I am getting 415 volt on the EB. I have an on-load tap changer transformer is there, and I am having the number of the tappings that is changing per day. I have limited these tappings, and at the same time I am having the band of optimum band of transformer secondary voltage between, say, let us say 410 to 420 volt. It is operating between at a band of 10 to 15 volt, let us say. At that band, if the motor is loaded more, the efficiency is also dropping. if the motor is loaded correctly around 60 to 80, the efficiency is almost sustained at 100%. You can see the motor performance on the low voltage variations on the right bottom of that this one, the point in this PowerPoint. We can see the power factor and the full load current, the variations are very much more compared to the efficiency, but efficiency at -15 and +15 for a given rated normal loading of motor. If the loading of the motor is say around 60% or 50% only, it is around 60%, let us say. Instead of operating the motor at 420 volt, if you have a servo stabilizer or anything set for the motor, or you have a batch of motors which is all operating at only 50%, then you can even reduce the tapping of transformer from 420, you can bring it to 400 also, or you can bring it to 380 also. Because an underloaded motor at 60%, I don't say it's totally underloaded, at 60% the motor is loaded means it can afford to have 380 volt and still it will give a lot of energy savings, or the energy consumption is going down for this given loading. Let us say the motor is, I am assuming all the motors in our industry is equally balanced. Yeah, motor is theoretically meant as a equally balanced three-phase machine, but normally it does not happen. That is why we go for three-phase four-wire meter to measure the current unbalance, or measure the, that is the negative phase sequence component we wanted to measure, and then we wanted to see the three-phase four-wire the metering on the motor consumption as such. Assuming the motor is having an unbalance of around 5%, automatically the motor, 10 HP motor, gets derated to 7.5 HP. So whether the motor is loaded correctly or whether the motor is rated correctly, whatever you are getting in the EV, just to confirm with your, see, these are all the end-to-end loss. I am having my voltage probe at the motor at the middle point of the plant. It can be at the tail end or at the, whenever I am switching on and off the next motor, a high capacity motor, I say a 55 kilowatt or a 75 HP or a 37 kilo, whichever it may be. Once you have a dip and dim of the voltage drop, there is a probability of some dry loose contacts in the SSB. So these are all the areas. You don't need to have a power quality analyzer to measure the transients to find out where the fault has come. But every one of us is aware, whenever the motor is switching on and off, once the motor is switched on, the voltage from 410 volt, it has dropped by 5 volt, means there is definitely a more than the motor consumption, more of earth leakage, or more of the leakage that is happening across the phases. Why it is happening to the fourth neutral, this can be also be checked. And coming to the underloaded motor, if the motor is underloaded, let us say motor is underloaded by 40% or 30%. A 10 HP motor is, you are running it for, see, starting only motor like a typical cylinder, see, conveyor motors, or some of the let us say cylinder motors, or heavy equipped motors, high torque initial to start with, and to run the motor you need only low torque. At that time the motor consumes only 30% or 40%. Bureau of Energy Efficiency gives a guidelines. You simply retrofit a automatic Delta converter. It has, we can see, thanks to the electronics. See, the electronics, lot of innovations are happening in the electronics that has to come to the industry. Yeah, EEPROM based controller, which is a automatic delta to star controller. Once it is retrofitted, it is just costing 10,000, around 10,000, and it is fitted on the motor panel at less than 30% or 40%. It will definitely bring down the energy savings by 10 to 20%. So each and every, it is again depending on the application that is used. For all the material handling applications, when the high torque load is there to start with, and on the low torque, it will definitely have a savings depending on the loading. And if the loading is steady, this can be used. And this is a low cost retrofit. And if the motor is having a wild fluctuation of zigzag fluctuation, let us say it's a compressor, I am having a load unload operating at 7 bar. I am having a 50 HP motor, 37 kilowatt motor. It is operating from load unload 20 kilowatt to 40 kilowatt. It is having a big zigzag. Then you need to have the variable frequency drive. So where that is applied, how it is applied through closed loop control, that will give savings, but that is costly, but the savings is more. So on the energy conservation front, you have to look for higher amount of savings for which the high cost is invested. On the higher amount of savings for which the low cost is invested. First is the priority, low cost investment. Second comes the high cost investment. Coming to the symptom of healthy motors. See, You can find in some of our these thermal images, we have been using these thermal images almost from 6 to almost from 8 years and above. Some of the readings are taken from our all of the energy audit workings. I just went through a back through and then studied this, and many of the motors we found between the driven and non-driven, the temperature is almost from 30 degrees, 35 degrees. The difference is more. You can see the image, bottom left image. On the left, the temperature is around 30, and on the right, especially at the bearing, it is almost 140. Because the bearing is heated up and it is greased more, automatically the bearing temperature has gone to 140, and the heat is not getting dissipated through the skin. So automatically the motor is put to the overload at one end and underload at the other end. See, a motor is seen through the thermal characteristic of the motor, not only on the electrical side. What all the electrical input you give it to the motor, but you see on the thermal aspect of the motor. A warm motor is a healthy motor. A motor with an ambient temperature, our Indian ambient, let us say it's around 40 degrees in the industry. If the motor is running around 60 degrees at the skin, if it is measured by the thermal imager, it is excellent. If the measured temperature is more than 70 degrees, 80 degrees and all it is going, the motor is going for overload. Why it is going for overload? Let us look into it. And if the motor temperature is almost near to 40 degrees or only 5 or 10 degrees more, so the motor is idling. So a thermal imager, it has, say, here I want to just give you one input about thermal imager. Everyone thought thermal imager is very costly a tool, sophisticated tool, we don't need to go for it. In fact, it is a down-to-earth tool for given that is required for each and every LT type of industry, not only the ST. LT type of industry needs to have this. Thanks to IoT and artificial intelligence, now lot of innovations have come. Even on the cell phone, this infrared detector is attached and it is costing for 20,000 rupees. The infrared tool is available. An infrared tool with an Android app, you can see on your all your machines if it is an LT service. For the ST service, the price was almost 2 lakhs and above before it was. Now it has come to almost 50,000 and less than from 30,000 onwards it operates. Why I'm suggesting is it has been multiplied. The numbers are multiplied on the thermal imager. Thermal imager is one of the non-invasive tool for the given industry, not only to study the electrical drop or electrical hotspots, but this main webinar content of the webinar to see the hotspots that is happening in the process side on the utility and on the production machines. So the driven and non-driven temperature, it has to be around 10 degrees. If it is more than 10 degrees, more than 20 degrees, then let us see why it is happening. You can see the right side images. The temperature at the bearing is going more and more, and because of that, the skin temperature also going more than 70. Yeah, see, a typical motor manufacturer say my motor can withstand up to H class insulation, F class insulation. That's all okay. But as and when the see, as I told before, in the start of the webinar, I said only one point. Let us go back to the basics of the energy law, conservation law. Whatever is the input is given to the system, say here it is a motor, whatever the kilowatt I am giving to the motor, if the kilowatt is the deliverable at the output shaft of the motor, that is the motor input output relation. If the output shaft delivery is going less and the losses are going more, is heat is a symptom of loss. So automatically motor gets heated and motor gets overloaded. So look into the aspect of heat as a symptom, hotspot as a symptom, then you can definitely correct. Coming to the, I'm taking the aspect of TEFC because this is used in IE1, IE2, IE3 everywhere. Totally enclosed fan cooled motor. A motor needs an excellent lubrication, at the same time a very sufficient ventilation. Excellent lubrication means what? See, this session I wanted to say what is happening in the industry and why this cannot be changed in the industry. At this post-COVID times, let us have the changes. Let the industry is happy with the ordinary multi-purpose grease, and it is meant for an ordinary usage, meant for 2 hour or 3 hour running of motors per day. But we are running the motors for 24 hours. A motor, if it is fitted with a specialty grease, I have seen some of the motors in especially in the textile mills. Here I should say the textile mill where we have done more amounts of audits after the 400 around 300 audits we have done in textiles. But that gave a lot of inputs to us, technology inputs to us, where all the energy can be saved or conserved. This is what I want to share it to the other industry. So let us say the motors, if it is still using this multi-purpose grease, see, I have seen some of the industries, they are pumping every week, pumping every month, pumping every 3 months, every 6 months and all. Yeah, normally, if this multi-purpose grease, or some industry has gone a step ahead. See, it is all again the costing, the initial costing. Everyone thinks I will pay for only 1 kilo, I will pay only 100 rupees, 150 rupees, 200 rupees. It is not correct. Don't look into the aspect. See, you can meantime between the greasing, you can re-greasing, you can increase. If you go for a specialty greasing, you don't need to touch your motor for more than a year. Previously, you were doing it for every month or every 3 months. Now you don't need to touch the motor for 1 year. 1 year. If the motor is done with a specialty grease. This specialty grease, what it should be like? Say, I'm talking to you generically. I don't want to give any brand or anything, but generically speaking, it should have high temperature. See, the industry thought, let us go for wheel bearing grease. Wheel bearing grease, it's an extreme pressure. It is pressure resistant. But what we need in the motor is for temperature resistant. We need a high temperature resistant grease, and it has to have a shear stability. The shear stability means the mechanical stability against the motor and machine. If it is tangentially driven, the tangential shear stress that has to be adjusted. Then comes the corrosion resistance and the oil bleed. See, oil bleed means the residue given by the grease, after even if it is going out of the greasing capacity, the residue should be less. Pumpability or the penetration length also should be more. So all these aspects, compared to the conventional lithium greases or the multi-purpose greases, this polyurea thickened synthetic greases which has come now, it is definitely reducing the torque on the bearings on driven and non-driven, especially on the driven, and it is also energy saving also. Let us look into the aspect of energy saving. Let us look into the aspect of safety, and let us see, you are putting your labor for 4 times a year to pump, re-grease, and you are not removing it. We can see the right side bottom of the chart where whatever the grease you have put here at the motor at the point grease gun, what is there at the output at the drain point, and what it has come out. See, you can see the condition, the greasing condition, the temperature and time, how much it has gone back. So the grease has to act like a sponge on the bearing and to keep the rotation of the motor very smooth. Once it is not there, then it is a loss to the system. That is where the localized heat is shooting up to more than 100 degrees and up. One is lubrication. See, I'm touching different aspects of day-to-day monitoring of all your utilities and production machines. One is the lubrication of the given water. The other one is the ventilation. Yeah, water needs a sufficient ventilation. You come across any type of industry, whenever they say out of 10 motors that has failed in the industry, almost 3 motors or 4 motors, the backside fan blade, which is made of a very ordinary plastic. There is a lot of excellent engineering polymer has come, which is very heavy and it is able to drive a excellent static and pressure and CFM. That is not fitted now. That is costing 150 rupees. This is costing 50 rupees. Let us not be paisa wise and rupee foolish. Let us be rupee wise and paisa foolish. So let us invest more on a fan where it is having a better dia, higher dia, gives more of ventilation, sufficient ventilation. So you see the both the figures, the each and every type of industry needs a different type of a fan cowl cover. This type of see the green cover, green motor with this type of cover with mesh type design, automatically within few hours it gets choked and automatically the air is not there, the motor gets to overload and motor gets burnt out. See, these are all the things that either the OEM also can suggest to the industry or the industry can do. Work spot innovation is more important for the given industry. So let us have the work spot people, let us the people in the industry, they suggested for this is a textile mill. So they said instead of having this type of cotton, they has to move through this. They have provided the horizontal grill. Automatically, whatever the fluff that came in, it is went out. So whatever the air that is getting thrown, you have to see in the ribs of the motor. That is why you can see the IE2 motor and IE3 motor, the almost you will find the IE3 motor is finned more. You can see the fins at the back of the motor, the actual fins. Fins are more. You see the green color motor, the fins are less. The motor has to dissipate more heat, then only it can run better as such. The ventilation at the drive, see, ultimately the hot spot is the diamond of the motor. So you concentrate the air circulation or the air throw is there coming to the diamond point of the motor. And you can even think of providing a flag towards the diamond so that the air is directed from the back of the motor, from the non-diamond to the diamond of the motor, and it is pointing towards, it is sloping towards the shaft of the motor, so that always an active ventilation, an active air, a positive cross ventilation across the diamond of motor is there, so as to withstand the hot spot of the given bearing area or the diamond area. So let us say the no load loss defines the motor. This one also. See, all the IE1, IE2, IE3 motor OEMs can say, sir, I want to reduce the no load loss. So to reduce the no load loss, you are putting a small amount of fan. I don't say it is they have given a ready-made motor, but for our industry, you have to fine tune with your motor. You can replace the higher diaphragm with a more impellers so that you can get a more flow across the fins of motor. Whatever the OEMs give, you discuss with the motor OEM, and then you see here that active sufficient ventilation from the motor fan cowl is delivered on the motor fins. So the no load and the load loss will definitely come down during the loading. See, first cases we are putting a small fan, typically as given by the motor OEM, it will show no load loss as less. But when you are putting a bigger fan to suit your environment, automatically at the loading, the overall losses will come down, the motor heat is coming down. Coming to the compressor. See, I'm just talking about the different aspects where the end-to-end losses are happening in each and every machine, each and every part or subsystem of the utility and for the productions also. We can find on the blue lines where I have written, where they have suggested, no industry has fixed a temperature gauge on the air receiver. Why is it so? Let us try to fix a temperature gauge. See, somewhere you need to know the health of the machine at the point of delivery. A temperature gauge, say the thermal images, what it shows is almost 44 degrees, almost it is at 44 degrees the air is entering. Yeah, see, that is why many of the compressor OEMs, they came with the integrated dryer, integrated refrigeration dryer within the compressor hood. They have understood the problem for a tropicalized country like India. So they have removed the dryer and kept out. Yeah, dryer needs to be kept out of the compressor. One more reason is the ambient air is there. The heat transfer across the ambient air, every utility or every machine wants to make use of it. So if you want to make the heat transfer across the ambient, definitely you try to make your system big enough, volume is more, and separately. We have to have discrete systems as possible, subsystems. And the dryer temperature or the compressor post-air cooler is not effective, so automatically the temperature has gone to 45 degrees, the compressor FAD will come down. The compressor FAD can come down. Compressor is like a submersible pump working in an air. It needs the air to suck in, it needs the air to surround the compressor. Once the air is not surrounding the compressor, automatically the compressor will go to overload. So that is one aspect. The refrigeration dryer, you can see how the temperature is ambient plus 5 degrees it is coming. Let us say its ambient is 40, around 45 degrees it is coming, means after the dryer it should be around 40 degrees. Ambient minus 5 degrees. See, these are all the symptoms. It can be seen by a thermal imager, or it can be, you have to fix a gauge, pressure gauge on the refrigeration dryer in and out, and a temperature gauge also to know the temperature differential across a dryer and the pressure differential across a dryer. Digitalize it. Yeah, once you are, see, digitalization of any industry it was a very costly affair a decade back, but now it has become very much affordable now. See, once you are digitalizing, you are able to add on with alarms. You can have alarm settings, you can have tip settings, you can have a lot of optional accessories once you have made a digitalized measurement of your process. So compressor house, where the housekeeping can be done. See, thanks to the LG, this one, the daily checks are there. Are we monitoring the daily checks? The hour meter, the loaded hours, the unloaded hours. It has to be bifurcated as the loaded hours and the unloaded hours. The discharge temperature of the air, compressed air, that is more important. It is mentioned here, but none of us are having on the air receiver. The air gauge or a temperature gauge in the air receiver will show the health of the compressor. So the load and load pressures and the air filter plug indicator. Then the compressors are all installed, but the hot air that is pumped out, exhausted out from the top of the compressor, it is again sucked back to the compressor. Why don't we just have, see, we may have the provision to extend the duct outside of the compressor house. At least let us have a duct, say a 2 meter or 3 meter duct on top of the compressor, so the hot air just is moved away from top, and the compressor always gets a cool dry air to compress. These are all the areas. See, every 4 degrees rise means 1%. Say around 5% possibility of savings is there in compressor house. Let us do it. Compressed air usage and leakage. The compressed air usage and leakage, why it comes? Why the compressor leakage is coming means lot of water increase is there in the compressed air line that is prone for leakages. Once the leakage has started happening in the compressed air, in the equipments, automatically the pressure drops happen. Once the pressure drops happening, see, that is why end to end we can have the digital gauges and keep the monitoring. Whenever the machine is started or whenever the heavy leak is there, definitely this will give an alarm. So then you can immediately go and attend it. See, Indians are tuned to not total full automatic. We are all tuned to semi-automatic mode in the industry. Let us have the automation done and a manual intervention so that where the problem happens, it can be immediately corrected. And it shortens the equipment life once the air leakage is more and once the running time for the given equipment is more. If you see the compressed air consumption wise, 50% is going towards the production, means almost 30% is going towards the leak and the artificial demand. This artificial demand is 10%, means this can be provided with a feed-forward air receiver, and automatically this can it can buffer your artificial demand. By providing a buffer, instead of a 6.8 kg I am operating the machine, I am putting a receiver at the tail end or at the feed-forward receiver. Automatically you can bring down the pressure from 6.8 to 6.3 depending on the condition. So again, addition of receivers at the compressor house, at the tail end and at the intermediate, wherever it is located, because it doesn't consume power, but it is able to buffer the air. See, it is similar to electrical transients. What is happening in the electrical network, it is happening in seconds and milliseconds. But the pneumatic lag for any industry throughout the world, I am telling what are all the universally happening the industry maintenance practices I am discussing. Because having trained in India and abroad, we see come across a lot of inputs. What is meant to be tropicalized, let us tropicalize it to make the equipment healthy. Pneumatic lag is more, so that needs buffers at each and every place. In some of the machines, you will find air bottles for some of the machines to have an adequate buffer space so that whatever the equipment draws, it will be maintained by the air bottle fitted at the bottom of the equipment. You see the right bottom diagram, it shows the wet receiver and the dry receiver has to function well, means the automatic drain valves has to function in the receivers, it has to function in the post and coolers, it has to function in both the receivers and the refrigeration dryer. See, the water in the air, compressed air, can be drained in 3 stages. One, from the compressor by the post air cooler. Then by just bringing down the, then putting a water separator. See, water separator in many of the industries, water separator is there, but it is always choked. You see here that the automatic water drain from the water separator is working okay. Automatically the water is baffled. They put a baffled like barrier, and the water, the air, once it comes in, the water droplets come down and it is automatically drained out. Then the air is brought to a lower temperature. That is why we maintain the dew point. So once it is refrigerated, automatically the further air, what all the water vapor that is there in the water ingress is there, it is totally removed. If you see into the 3 aspects of the water removal in the compressor house, this will definitely improve the pneumatic health of the industry. How the right diagram shows how the compressor house layout with the receiver at the next of the compressor, and from the receiver you need to have the water separator and the coalescent filter, and then the dryer, the refrigerator dryer. Again, this water separator and the coalescent filter along with the automatic drain, it will definitely improve the compressor house healthiness. Compressed air parameters. See, again, this is a point which I was thinking it is happening in our industry. But when they tried throughout India, and it is tried all the industries, imported compressors, Indian compressors, everywhere, the free air delivery or the air delivered freely at the mouth of the compressor, it is measured, it is not monitored. I don't say the CFM has to be monitored, but at least the Pascal, the differential pressure across the air intake filter needs to be monitored. We can see the right bottom figure. They have put a vacuum type of yellow and red gauge. These band gauges, which is fixed on the filters, these pipeline filters, which is fitted on compressors, they always work safe and they always show safe reading only. It is always green. It is safe only, but automatically it is choked inside. Let us have either you can digitize it like the one it is showed by a compressor OEM, or you can have analog gauge, but you need to have a alarm, visual alarm. Once the pressure drop is more, automatically it can give alarm. So an air intake for a given compressor needs to be monitored. Let us have the monitoring done at this stage. Then normally the compressor is fitted with a pressure control sensor, which is at the tip or at the junction or at the elbow junction of the oil reservoir. Almost all the screw compressors are like that. They can just do one thing. It is a discussion with the OEM, proactive discussion with the OEM and the user industry. Just relocate the compressor pressure control sensor to the main receiver. Automatically the pulsations come down. You can see the center graph where it shows a 75 kilowatt machine operating from 50 kilowatt to 100 kilowatt. Every 3 times a minute it was zigzag loading and unloading. Because why it happened? Because the FAD was bad. The inlet air intake filter was choked. And the next one is the point where it is taken, the pressure pulsations were more. It is not a streamlined air pressure that is happening at that point where the sensor has been put on the compressor hood. The third point is the cleaning or the dry receiver is not there, where the process pulsations, it added the pulsations more to the system. So trying to have the pulsations, smoothen out the pulsations, automatically the compressor savings, which you have seen in there, it was seen in there. Boundary, almost a battery of a compressor, 675 kilowatt compressors at the 5 kA receiver. Once they just change their pressure control sensor from the compressor to the receiver, instead of 5,500 units per day, they are able to reduce 500 units per day. It can happen. The amount of savings depends upon the industry segment and the nature of application. So any type of filter, air intake filter, you are relying on the paper filter, which is a sub 10 micron size. But instead of that, let it be there. Let us have a 2-stage filter. One is a V-type filter, which is having a higher area of cross section, and we have a washable filter also. You can see the image. Both the filters are fitted so that the delta P across the air intake is not rising more. At the same time, if it is a let us say it is a 3,000 hours, you have to replace the filters. Within 5,000 Pascal is the, let us say, the maximum pressure drop allowed. Within 1,000 Pascals, if the pressure drop is going more, you can immediately remove it and then you can clean it either daily or weekly, depending on the industry requirement. And then keep the existing filter, paper filter, very clean and neat. Let us not overload the paper filter, and let us keep the pre-filters clean daily. And you can see that the FAD is very much improved for the given compressor. Then the compressor leaks. Whatever the leaks that is happening, by digitizing the pressure drops across on the headers, we can definitely know. And wherever the leaks are there, these are all the points to be attended. And automatic water drains, instead of manual water drains, automatic drains are there in each and every point at the incoming of the machine. Definitely it is either manually crackable or automatically you are seeing the drain is happening, it is fine. But all your puppet type solenoid valves, electro valves, bleed type valves, these water, once it is ingressed, automatically the neoprene borings will get cut. So whenever this is the time, you just lubricate with neoprene, this one, the silicon type grease, and then see to it that the water does not ingress into all these type of electro valves. Then the cooling tower and the heat exchangers, you will find what all this is applicable to all the industry, where in air conditioning industry or in the other industries where the cooling towers are used. The cooling tower suction and delivery across the tower, one is the pressure differential, the other one is the temperature differential. The provision can be made now and made to operate now, because in many of the places it is there, but it is not operating. You have to see to it that it is robustly operating throughout the life of the cooling tower. Similarly, for a air conditioner, it is a split or a package. what is the kilowatt input given to the machine, air conditioning machine? The freon output, either the suction pressure or the discharge pressure for the given compressor. If you see the refrigerated dryer manufacturers, they have given almost pressure and the suction pressure and the delivery pressure to be monitored. Similarly, we can have this on all our air conditioning systems, right from a say 3-tonner or a 5-tonner or any of the sizes, for including the split, depending on the condition where it is to be critically used, because it is kept in a open terrace, unmanned area. At least the air is the freon gas is leaking out or it is going over. Everything you can come to know by having these gauges within the compressor hood as such. Coming to the pumping, as I said before, the piping is a critical area. You can see the pump with a 4-inch flange is given a 6-inch expander at the point of expanding from the pump to the header. It's a conjoined header where you find the slope is given. Then the friction, say a 4-inch pipe or a 3-inch pipe. I am having a 4-inch pipe at the delivery of the pump. Once over a period of 2 years or 3 years, due to the TDS level of water, it becomes 3-inch, means the friction increases by 3 times in the given piping. So either by pigging we can remove the scaling inside the pipe, or you can descale it, or you have to have a higher size and visually to be monitored at the time of COVID. This is the time we can check all our internal equipments. And the block and bleed valves that is fitted on the pressure gauges, that needs to be monitored, and so that you can see across the line the pressure gauge is also working. At the same time we can check the zero of the gauge, and at the same time we can monitor the range of the process that is there. The impulse line also can be brought to a stand next to the pipe and it can be fixed, so that the pipeline vibration need not transfer to the gauge, and within 2 days or 1 week after the pressure gauge installation on the pumping line, this gauge needle comes out and it doesn't show anything. So you also have a comfort of monitoring the gauge or fixing the gauge in the robust installation. A gauge can cost few hundreds, but what it is monitoring is very critical to us. The pressure of the suction of the delivery pump pressure is very critical to us for energy conservation or for process optimization. Coming to the air conditioners, what is the monitoring and relative working can be done is, one is, as I said, the freon high gas pressure means automatically the condenser is getting choked, and this is the area it can be monitored and it can be prompt action can be taken. And any of the air conditioners, the incoming KWH for the compressor and the runover for the given compressor can start from a 1-ton split also, and it can go to 100-ton package also. It is on a higher sizes, definitely the OEMs have given, but it has to come to the split also. See, you are using in a bank or you are using in an office, multiple air conditioners, you can show the relative efficiency of the air conditioners with respect to the KWH and the runover consumption. So the relative input out runover monitoring and the output freon gas pressure, what is the higher gas pressure or the lower pressure, that will show whether the system is healthy. Here you can put a electronic motor protection relays with a underload protection. Once the freon gas is leaked out and the pressure is dropping from suction pressure of, say, let us say, instead of 50 psi or 60 psi, it is dropping to 35 psi, it can give an alarm. Inferential gauges are there in the electronic side. We can put it on the motor panel, and still you can know the freon compressor is going for underload because of low gas. This can be also checked. Coming to the auxiliaries of the air conditioning, see, cooling tower needs a clean surroundings. One is putting a clean surrounding, other one is putting a mesh so that it is clean daily and you are maintaining it. And in some industry, we have also suggested you just have a brick type, jolly type mesh ball and monitor, just put your RO water or clean water in the peak hour of the peak days of the summer. It's a natural evaporative ventilation, evaporative cooling. The air is sucked in through the brick wall, and then it is all with the jolly type mesh of design, which is fixed at a breathing with a given at a breathing space, so that air is sucked in and the cooling tower functions improves with an by seeing the wet bulb of the ambient. By seeking the advantage of the wet bulb of the ambient, the cooling tower can operate well with a better range and approach. On the air-cooled condenser, I am putting a velocity recovery ring. See, again I am telling, these are all low-cost innovations can be done. low-cost retrofits can be done to improve the performance of the air cover for the given fan, for the given kilowatt given to the air-cooled condenser. It can be on a package, it can be on a duct, or it can be on a split machine also. The motor burnouts that is happening in the industry, this can be definitely, we cannot allow the motor burnouts to happen in the industry, because every time motor burnout, every time rewinding, almost 3 to 5%. Sometimes it is less than 2%, sometimes it is 5%, depending on the quality of the rewind. Instead of allowing the motor to burn out, we can have this electronic motor protection relays. It can work on the single phasing, it can work on the current unbalance, it can work on the inverse overloading this one by the negative phase sequence components will see. And this is a proven system now, and it has become affordable thanks to the IoT and latest innovations in electronics, microelectronics. And yeah, thermal relay is costing 1,500, means this is costing 2,000 rupees. It is worth the retrofit in addition, or it can be replaced the thermal relay, overall relay, and definitely have a foolproof safety for the given system. It can be also used as a parameter for the given system. You can set your underload to your inefficient loading. Let us say a motor is running between 60 and 80. 80 is your higher loading, means it can trip on or it can give alarm. And if it is going below 50%, means it can give an alarm, it is lower loading. The equipment has to be run efficiently at a efficient loading. That can be checked as it. Coming to the motor to machine power transmission, you can see the excellent formatting done by our tech experts. The belts on the going on the tight side and the slack side, on the stretching and shrinking on the given belt. See, this is visibly happening in each and every industry. You name any industry, it's a LT industry or a micro industry or a mega industry, large scale industry, everywhere it is happening, because the belt OEMs, the reputed OEMs say the pulley, after replacing the belts more than 10 times on the pulley becomes totally worn out, totally dished out, they say. That is a technical jargon they say. Once it is worn out, it has to be replaced. So a motor with a high tension pulley and belt, you can see the temperature on the pulley is almost 90 degrees and 112 degrees. This has been taken in the year 2012 during our energy audits. See, what all we learned from the energy audits, we wanted to share it to the industry professionals like you. Here, the belt temperature and the pulley temperature is going more than that of the motor, because it is over tensioned. If it is slack tensioned, let us say if it is high tension, the motor goes for overload. If it is slackly tensioned, out of 4 belts, only one belt is working, means automatically a 50 HP motor will work for only 30 HP. It gets saturated at 30 HP because it is not able to transmit the power from the motor to machine. You can see, especially on the blowers, all our blowers say the 100% replacement is easy, electronically commutated blowers. It is a very costly affair. But on your existing blower, it's a low cost retrofit. A combination of VFD and a resized pulley on a given blower, almost you can bring the power savings almost from 30 to 40%. This power savings is achievable in all the air handling blowers and all the variable torque load. Blower itself is a variable torque load. In all the industry utility can be utilized. You can see almost it was in a air supply cleaner on an air conditioning plant. The 20% was the slippage that was there before, they did not notice it. If we had a IoT based sensor, speed sensor on the motor and the machine, definitely the 2% only is allowed, and the loss of the RPM is a loss to the system as it. This can be corrected as it. Leave alone the power savings for a given blower, leave on the blower. See, this is a constant torque machine on the production side. You can see the right bottom image. The old pulley was like that, and the new pulley with the blower, carved pulley with the correct matched pulley and carved belt. Automatically, it was able to restore the productivity by 20% more. Almost a 250 kg sand mixer, means up to 220 kg it is restored. Before it was operating at 150, 160 kg, it was restored to 220 kg. From 60% loading only was possible for a given machine, that was brought down to almost 80 to 85%. The investment for that company is just 10,000 rupees on a 10 lakh rupee machine which they wanted to replace, but they just invested only 10,000 rupees, these blow mount castings at Coimbatore, automatically had the savings, they are able to restore the machine, and it is almost running for more than a year. So this is the area, the belts and the grip on the belts between the motor and the machine, or from the machine to motor, the grippage can be there to restore the productivity of the machine. This is a visible low-hanging fruit. Next is the boiler. See, electrical side is one thing, boiler side is one thing. You can see the boiler schematic, the energy flow schematic, and the Sankey diagram, what we call our energy management slogans. The steam and the condensate loop, the boiler is 100% fuel is given. Maybe it's a furnace oil or maybe it's a fire oil. But boiler loss is around 15 to 20%. And the distribution loss is around, distribution loss is around 5 to 10%. And automatically the process receives only 60% and the condensate goes back to 20%. Here, it is a jugaad we have suggested during our energy audits, and it has been implemented in many of the energy, textile processing units in Tirupur and in many of the places in and around this textile region, where they are using these package boilers, which doesn't have a breathing space for the steam to come out, and then the water has to come out of the system. Once it is removed from the boiler and from the boiler house, let us have the condensate return as one as the feed and return and one as the return line from the process. Whatever the condensate that has been taken from the boiler house after the moisture separator at the boiler house or at the distribution header, that will be very hot. It will have a higher amount of latent heat that can definitely increase your feed water tank temperature. Next stage is you bring down all your return temperature. See, it has gone, the temperature to the process has gone to 90 degrees or 120 degrees, but when it is returning, it comes to only 60 degrees. A 60 degree temperature return is one aspect from the process, and a 100 degree plus return from the condensate, from the moisture separator at the boiler house, that is one type of return. Both the returns are combined together at the feed water tank. Automatically, every 6 degrees rise in the feed water tank temperature, it goes to 1% fuel savings. That we can definitely achieve. Moisture separator, not only on the boiler header, but it is also on any of the bigger sizes machines where the steam dryness has to be maintained at 5%. 5% means 99% steam and 5% is the water that is allowed. In many of the industries where we have seen, they are using some 4 number 6 ton of boiler. We measured the steam dryness at the field. We found that it was only at 75 or 78% only. 20% was the loss in the steam dryness. Moisture carryover was there in the steam. Once they have suggested, we have monitored, we have measured, and we have given to them for correction. They have gone for a excellent flow meter with a steam dryness compensated, and it is able to measure the dryness from the flow meter also. Steam flow meter with the steam dryness measurement. The next is on all the equipments at the incoming side, so that at the boiler they have an air venting provision, so that the air is vented out from the moisture separator. At the equipments, air need not be vented, but it has to remove the water before entering the equipment. The productivity, thermal productivity of the equipment goes up very much well. So, I'm just covering all the aspects of the utilities. This can be taken to the process machines also. The generator now it is not much used, but whichever the generator that is being used, once in a month you are using it for 10 hours or 12 hours. At least you see to it that the return diesel temperature is maintained at around 40 degrees. You need to have a heat exchanger, post air cooler type of heat exchanger, and then fit it from the main return line to the diesel tank. Automatically, the temperature will be maintained at 40 degrees. This will give a the diesel savings are almost around 4 to 5%. We have seen the savings. We have seen this in TVS Group, and we have suggested to many of the this one, and they have implemented and they have seen the savings. The return diesel temperature to maintain at 40 degrees instead of 55 or 60 degrees. The next one is the back pressure that is happening due to the exhaust back pressure. See, we have suggested them to remove that L joint. On this, you can see the right bottom image. We have asked the industries to remove the L joint, long bend, and suggested to put a T connection, and with an inspection cover, they can remove all the debris from the exhaust. See that the back pressure is not created in the exhaust, so that they are able to run the genset to the fuller capacity. The third point is, as I was telling for the air compression, the generator also gets automatically the air intake filter is getting totally choked. Generator also needs a cool dryer, that needs to be definitely given. Next to this one, all the generators, the OEMs have tuned the industry to run the generator only for 60%. On the safer side, let us run the generator on the safer side, 80% on the power factor and 80% on the loading, 80 plus 80 into 80, almost 64% only, or almost 60% only the generator is loaded. A generator is loaded for kVA rating, not for kilowatt rating. If the generator is loaded for kVA rating and you are able to operate the generator at 80% of kVA, straight away you can have an units per liter savings from 3 to 3.6. You can go for units per liter savings. You can have an excellent savings when you are able to fully utilize the loading of the generator to the efficient region between 60 and 80%. A generator operated at 50%, it will consume only 3 to 3.2 units per liter. A generator which is operated at around 80%, it will consume 3.6. It will generate 3.6 units per liter. This is what we can visibly see, and we can definitely improve upon it. This is where we have to put an automatic power factor control automation for the genset at the common point of coupling. Operate the genset at 0.09 lagging and operate the EB at say 0.98, not to 100% unity power factor, because let us not have leading power factors. So these are all the aspects with the 3CT APFC control on the genset and this one EB side with the dual set point. Definitely this will improve on the genset also, and also it will improve on the EB side as well. Provided we have the load and compensation done for all your machines above age. So what are all the discussions we have discussed now? All low cost investments. If you see the bottom image on the right side, the energy conservation promotions, which is having a high impact, low cost high impact and high cost high impact. Let us do this low cost high impact, the third quadrant. Let us concentrate on the third quadrant of this one chart, and let us have all these condition monitoring provisions, actions, and measure what all the equipments are giving us the prompting inputs, whether they are healthy or not. Let us measure all those things. In the streamlined working, maybe after a few months we are going for a full swing of 100% loading. Definitely this will improve in a long way. So the low cost to high cost, let us think of high impact first. Once it is done, then we can go for high cost, high impact. The last one comes only low cost, low impact is the last one. When it is to be replaced, we can think of that aspect. If you see the Bureau of Energy Efficiency official guide, it is suggesting only one point. The baseline efficiency, you monitor it, and the post retrofit efficiency. Either the efficiency goes up, either the productivity goes up, or the runovers comes down. These are all the three aspects. It has to be monitored to know what you have achieved is excellent, especially in the post-COVID times. See, when you are between hand to mouth, you have all the constraints. You will do an excellent job at this time on this energy conservation that is at the bottom of it. Thank you. Thanks for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. That was a fantastic presentation, very detailed, even including how we can optimize with condition monitoring also from an end-to-end perspective. That was a very in-depth presentation. Thanks a lot.